record this? Okay. So, all right. So this was inspired by some work that I had done with augmented reality. And so, let me some real quick. Okay. So yeah, so this was I had done some stuff with augmented reality before this, like AR, doing stuff with like Unity, the Unity game engine, and so Unity uses C# or JavaScript actually. You can use JavaScript with it too, and it's a game engine, but you use it with like VR and AR. And anyway, as you go through the tutorials, you'll be making all these different classes in your game. And they'll all inherit from each other. You'll have things like a game object that will have certain attributes, that'll have to do with like collisions, like whether or not the object in the game, has like a physical presence to it, whether it like collides with thing, whether physics or is applied to it, or is it like a light in the sky where there is no physics and it's just emitting light. So you'll have like different like really basic classes, and you'll have this inheritance chain. And so when you get down to something like, some like game character, it's probably inheriting from, quite a few different other classes that, that allow you to take this like shared behavior that'll be used throughout your application, and you can stick it in a single place. And so this relates to the idea, this is called object-oriented programming or object-oriented design. And so there's different styles and, pros and cons. But this is just a very traditional style, and in a CS degree, if you're getting a CS degree at a university, this would be like one of the first things they would teach you, is object-oriented design and how you do this. So this is actually like in any game that you play, like they're probably using a similar object-oriented design like this underneath. And so like, yeah, there's all the animations and everything built on top of it, but this structure that we're going to build right now, you could actually take and use this in a, you could use this in like a browser-based video game if you wanted to make one. You could use like jQuery and stuff like that to like create like the, the actual like HTML, and like have them move around and like be the characters, and, and you'd have listeners to detect different events and stuff that happen. But anyway, so this is like actually like what it would be like. So cool. And along with Pulse server for an emulator for a game for 96 online. Cool. All right, so let's go in and explore how we would do this. So yeah, so essentially you see it's kind of like this tree. It very much is a tree. And so right here we'll say like NPC will be a class. And so this will be stuff that will be shared across, other classes, and we'll have a humanoid class, animal class, and a plant class, just like, for example. And then with humanoid, we'll have, humans. We're going like fantasy direction on this. And so we'll have human, elf, and then an orc. All right, and then animal, it would have a, bear and a wolf. Plant, we have our flesh-eating daisy. All right. And then but then within human, since right here is human would then branch out, and we could have like a soldier, and we could have a peasant, and like a bandit, and so you can see it's a tree. This very much is a tree. And so the stuff at the top of the tree is going to have behavior that everything below it will be able to access. So the stuff that we're going to put on top of the top will be accessible, and stuff that's down below. So, all right, so we're gonna. All right, can you guys see my code? Like what I'm typing? Okay, all right. So, all right, let me do this real quick. Sorry, I'm just gonna clean up my desktop, and that's ready. Okay, 1 second. I got a little too click happy. All right. All right, here we go. Okay, I have JS and console. So, all right, let's see, it's not like my screen share. 1 second. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's start with NPC. All right. And then actually, let me check. Did I say to, okay, so I did not specify that it should be an ES5 or ES6. Okay, so ES6 classes are what's called syntactic sugar. So they're built on top of the ES5. Like so, they get they essentially get compiled down into ES5 code. But anyway, they make it very convenient. So, all right, so we're gonna have a constructor, and so, all right, what would be some properties that we would want on an NPC? Well, okay, let's say like, so an NPC, a non-player character. So this would be something generic like hit points. So we'll say like HP, and we're gonna set it using an options object. Okay, so like hit points, like that's a pretty generic thing that we can assume every non-player character is going to have. So they're going to have, yeah, they're going to have HP. Let's say that they have like a strength property. We'll give them a destroy method, which will mean like we'll remove it from the game. So, all right, so let's do, so destroy like console.log game object move from game. We're not actually like doing this the destroy or doing animations and stuff. We're just kind of like this is how you can see kind of like the underlying structure. So like, you know, and there would be like, we could probably put 100 different properties on here, you know, like getting very, very detailed. But we'll just, you know, we're just gonna do a couple like, you know, HP strength, and then we'll do like speed. Those are some like pretty generic properties. So, okay, so this is like what an NPC would look like. And so the interesting thing is that this NPC class, we're never going to really just be implementing just a plain NPC class. It's always going to have some like it's always going to have it's always going to have other attributes like it's always going to be it's essentially a tool that's going to be inherited from. But we're not ever going to actually make just a plain NPC in the game. But this is a way for us to kind of organize our behavior. So, yeah, real quick. Actually, 1 second. All right. So now let's go and let's create a humanoid class. Who's the other class? So let's do class humanoid constructor, and inside of the constructor we'll set options. And then in here are some things that maybe specifically relate to humanoids. Let's see. We certainly have some methods that relate to it. We'll have like walk method. All right, we could say like, all right, what would be something that would be like on a humanoid that would not be general job class, not the CS term. Yeah, okay, yeah, so we could do like, yeah, let's do something like, I'm gonna do height. Height, we'll say gender is equal to gender, let's say sex. Okay, so, all right, and then, all right, and then I'll have like a walk method. So these are things that are like, would be fairly generic to like humanoids within the game. And then now let's create a class for a human. And so humanoid would extends NPC. So humanoid builds off of NPC. And then class human right here is going to extend humanoid. All right, and then inside of the constructor here, we would then set up again, different options that we need to go through. So something we need to do here, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is super options. So we have to call the one that we're inheriting from and pass the options up the chain. So we need to call the class, the constructor that we're inheriting from. We need to pass it the options, the same options object. So, all right, so now with the human, let's put like the job here, like occupation. So like this dot occupation is options dot occupation, which actually, if we were to break it down into like, well, I'll just stop here. I'll just stop with human right here, and we'll just have like these 3 layers. But, well, yeah, we'll just stop right here. So, okay, so we have options, occupation. We could say this dot language is equal to options dot language. So this dot like clan, options dot clan, and maybe some of these could be moved up to humanoid. And but anyway, so just like some things that are maybe a little more specific to a human. We'll say that the humans in our game will have like, some special ability that other classes, don't have, so maybe humans can, I don't know, I haven't played RPGs for a while. Let's see, what would be something that a human could do? All right, what's something that a human could do that they would not, that like an elf or an orc would not be able to do? All right, let's see who plays the most video games. Nobody wants to expose themselves as a hardcore gamer. Yeah. Cool. All right. Jack of all trades. Okay. We'll say like, all right, we'll say like, I'll make it like shoot gun. We'll say that they have like a flintlock gun or something like that, and the other classes won't have that. So like elves will have bows, and like the orcs will throw spears or something, and we'll say that like that the humans have these like old-fashioned like blunderbuss like muzzle loader guns that they can shoot. So all right, so we'll just something like that, so something like specific that's to a human. Okay. All right, so now the way that we would instantiate this is we would say const human is equal to new human, or maybe what we do is we would say like Bob. The guy's name is Bob, and so here let's put a name. So the dot name is equal to options dot name. All right, and so human, and then what we do is we have to fill in all of these different properties. So the HP on Bob, we'll say that he has 50 HP. Strength will be 10. Speed will be 5. And then height will be, I don't know, 80, whatever unit we're using there. Sex will be male. And then so we'll have like name. Name is Bob. And then well, Bob the Strong. All right, that's our character's name. All right, and then occupation will be blacksmith. All right, and then language. All right, speaks English, and then the clan will be the McDonald's clan. All right. So, okay, so this right here, this kind of like fills out all the specific attributes for Bob, but a lot of these are being kind of set and abstracted away to within like the NPC class or with the humanoid class. And so as we create new characters in our game, they're just essentially this one little like object that we use to define what that character looks like. But then implementation-wise, behind the scenes, a lot of that behavior and things can be abstracted away and used in different classes. So let's console login. And let's, cool. All right, so there we go. Let's now have now Bob shoot his gun. Bob.shoot gun. So we see boom, it's printing out all this stuff. JSPen does this sometimes, and it drives me nuts. So JSPen's gonna spit out a bunch of garbage for some reason. Okay, and then let's do Bob.walk. So I think that will just inherit like that. So the character walked. And then we could do Bob.destroy. So just like destroy means like, okay, so like the player character navigated off of the level, and so now we need to destroy all the game objects so they're no longer like in memory. And so we'd like destroy them. So you see how this is all kind of inherited down. And so, but then we can have this branch off. And so, you know, we could make another humanoid class. We could make one for elf. And then we could go through and define a bunch of different properties on there inside of the constructor, give them specific methods. You know, inside of walk like this, instead of saying the character walked, like what we'd probably do in here is this would relate to like, you know, the mechanics of the game that we've built. Like with a web-based game, you'd probably use jQuery to like, you know, with like CSS and HTML to like build these little like HTML characters. And then you would use jQuery or something like that to go in and like modify and change the HTML and the CSS based off of like what methods you're calling on these objects. And so that's how they would like interact with like the game world. But let's do this. Let's we'll say this.name walked. And then we'll say right here, we'll say this.name was removed from the game. So clear, we'll run that, and we'll see, boom, Bob the Strong walked. Bob the Strong was removed from the game. So you can see how even up in here, this.name, it has access to the name that's added down in here. Essentially, the way this works is that human right here is a function, and we pass in this object that has all these different properties as options. And then what we do is it creates this, like a new object in memory that is what this keyword refers to. And so then we add, and so it starts out as empty. So here we have like this is equal to this empty object, this new empty object. And then we add a name, occupation, language, and clan to it. Well, before we do that, we take this new object and we pass it into the super. And so the super is this constructor. So this empty object comes in here, and then we pass it to this super. And so then it comes up to here. And so then we go in and we add HP. So the very first property that gets added to this object is HP. So it adds HP, it adds strength, it adds speed. The destroy method gets added to it. Then we come down here, then we add height and sex, and then add the walk method to it. And then we come down here and we add name, occupation, language, clan, and we add the shoot gun method to it, and then we return it. And so that's how it works. And so in this one options object, it's passed all the way up the chain, and it's used by all the constructors up here to create the object. But then, yeah, now we have this Bob character that has all that behavior that it is inheriting. If we created like an elf right here, so let's actually do that. So class elf extends humanoid. So constructor option. So we probably actually want to take this name and move this up here into humanoid. So that's more generic. You know, even like occupation, language, and clan, even those could honestly be like all brought up into here. Well, not necessarily, because some of them won't be. Some humanoids wouldn't have a language or occupation and clan. But anyway, so we'll, instead of clan, we'll say, I don't know, what would they, like house, the house that they're in. But even though it's kind of the same thing. All right, and then we'll say like the elf will have like a shoot bow. Is that the correct like onomatopoeia like term? Okay, so all right, so now let's create a new elf. All right, so we'll say const. All right, there we go. All right, so now we have our new elf, and then now we're going to specify a lot of these same things. So HP, we'll say he's at 30, and we'll say his strength is 5, and then his speed is 10, and then height is going to be 85, and then sex is also male. All right, so we got to look up here. Okay, so occupation, let's say he's a craftsman, super generic, but capitalize that too. So capitalize the other one. Language. All right, and then let's give it. It's like house. So the house will be. I don't know. Let's. What are the? I haven't read Lord of the Rings in forever. All right, what's an elfish house, guys? Is anyone going to help me out? Keebler, perfect. All right, so, all right, he's in the Keebler house. Okay. All right, and then name is Legolas. All right. So I think we've got everything. Name, let's see, name, height, sex, HP, strength, speed, occupation, language, house. Okay, all right, I think that seems right. So now, we have down here, so now we can go Legolas dots, shoot bow, but then we can also do Legolas dot walk, and then we can do Legolas dot destroy. So, oh, we gotta call super. All right, so twang, Legolas walked, Legolas was removed from the game. So, and you would have like everything in your game would have some kind of object to it, like even down to like Legolas, like the arrows that he shoots would be separate game objects, and then they would shoot off into the distance, like, you know, and they would have like attributes like related to like physics and stuff like that, and then when they're out of sight, or you know, or once there's a certain number of them in the game, they get destroyed or like removed from the game, so they're no longer taking up memory. And anyway, yeah, so just like all these different things would be, you'd have this pretty sophisticated hierarchy of different objects. So anyway, kind of fun. I'm gonna play around with it and see. Extend. Sorry, was someone making a comment? Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So hopefully this was a good little review of classes and how that works, and kind of an introduction into the idea of object-oriented programming. So yeah, just a way of like organizing the behavior of the application, so you can build out more sophisticated objects, within your program. So you can kind of think of your React components, like your React components, they inherit from other like React classes. Like when you do like a class-based component, it extends off of React.component, and so you have like that inheritance going on. And so anyway, so like different behaviors and things like that get inherited from the parent. So, all right, constructor options versus constructor options versus constructor foofy. Oh, constructor props. Yeah, so those are all exactly the same. So Patrick asked, so classes can see. I was asking is there a difference between so like in React we call this props. No difference. It's just another name for it. So I could call this props like that, and this would all still work. I could then change this one to foofy like that, and this all works. So nothing is everything all works. So just as long as within the scope the names match up, like within that like constructor method specifically. Yeah, why is that all foofy? Just kind of a goofy name that like stands out and like really gets the emphasis across. So I don't even know where that came from. All right, so private methods. Yeah, so private methods don't really work in Java. There aren't really private methods. Yeah, you can use closure to create that behavior sometimes, but yeah, we don't really have private unless that's been added. I used to not see private methods, JS class.
I might be confusing things, but I thought there was something about putting an underscore before the method name or something like that, but maybe that's just a convention from other.
Yeah, they call it pseudo privacy, and so it's just the underscore implies to like the programmer it's saying like, hey, don't call this, don't use this, but they still can. Yeah. So, but like in other languages, like when we get into C++, you actually can make something private, like it literally cannot be accessed from outside of like where you're defining the class. And so private methods would be something that's like used inside of the class internally to do something, but you don't want to like be able to access it like down here, like when you're using it. Like that's what a private method is. So like shoot gun would be a public method, but like let's say that like there's some like calculate trajectory of bullet method or something like that in like that's used in here, like calculate trajectory or something like that. This would be something that's maybe private, and we're going to call it in here, something like that. But we don't want to be able to call it. We don't want to be able to go Bob dot like calculate trajectory. Like we can call it right here. So the underscore just means like, hey, don't use that out here. It's not intended to be used out here. We're just using it inside of our own class to be able to like do some stuff. And so yeah, in JavaScript, they just kind of either put an underscore. You can like kind of mimic the private behavior with closure, but again, it's it's not. In other languages, like you can actually like specify methods, like you'd put something like private in front of it, and it would say like this method can only be invoked like within the class. And so when we get into C++, we'll be doing stuff like that. So yeah, there's no private or public. Like big keywords.
Cool. Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Yeah, good question. So yeah, we'll be going into that in a bit. So yeah, so you can, so it doesn't really get private, but a convention is to just put like an underscore or some @ signs in front of it or something like that. Yeah. So Yeah, yeah, and you could check the caller. Like, yeah, you can maybe do something like that. Check to make sure that like, is the person calling this function like, is the function that's calling it like, is it just this class? Yeah, you could do a check like that at the top. With Clojure, you can kind of do this as well, where you can have functions and stuff that are like and properties that are kind of behind the scenes. But anyway, so good.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a extra credit exercise for you.
Okay. All right.
This is pretty confusing to have like everything inside a single file. Can you show us it the way it's supposed to be, like with all the files, all the class files in a node, and exporting and importing the things relating to what we really want to construct, not just say for the city, not just showing the constructors, but how they are supposed to be arranged. How
Sure.
is the design purpose?
Yeah.
Design
Sure.
pattern, sorry.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Let me. Yeah. Let me make a folder real quick. Okay. Let me try to make sure I do this real quick. All right. So let me. All right, so here's our game folder. So the way I would do this is I would make each one of these classes would be their own file. So just, yeah, I'd probably do something like make directory and then call this like game objects. Or, I mean, they're classes, but that's generally like the term that's used. Yeah, maybe game classes. All right, so then inside of here, I'm gonna
saiu e deixou o carregador plugado na tomada em cima da cama.
let's see.
Outro, carregador de computador
Oh,
em toda uma casa. Assim deu no rádio.
hey, Alana, could you mute yourself? Okay, thanks. All right, let's do. So I'll make a file for NPC. Let's make a file for humanoid. So touch humanoid.js. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So let's do humanoid, human, and elf. So, and maybe we would like, depending on how big this was, maybe we'd break it down into like, something different. Like, maybe we'd probably have a separate folder that would be like, like NPCs, or something like that, and it would like have all the stuff in there because we're going to have like, hundreds of different objects. But for right now, I'm just putting these all in the same folder. So let's do touch.js. So yeah, just break them down into those. Those are the 4 classes we have right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm just going to copy these all in. So NPC, and that is funny. There we go. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll just go export default NPC like that. So because this is Node, so I'll show you what this would look like within your front end React application using export default. When we get into Node, you actually have to use a different syntax. But yeah, we would just do So then we'd have to import humanoid as well right here. So I'd have to import. So because I'd have to import the class to be able to extend from it. Yeah, yeah, being able to do the automatic indentation stuff is pretty nice. So let me just look at NPC does. Okay, so NPC doesn't need to All right, so let's do humanoid. All right, so in humanoid now, let me pull that one in. All right, so humanoid extends NPC, so we need to make sure that we have NPC. Okay, so this right here will not actually work in Node. You have to use a different syntax, but I'm just showing you within context of like within like React, like this like makes sense. Like this is how you would do this like on the front end, like with React. So import it there. All right, so let's now go to our elf. And then we import humanoid from. So both human and elf are both importing that humanoid file. And we'll do export default elf. Okay, so there are, okay, there's the 4 files that are all set up with those classes. And so then now what we would do is we'd have like our game script. And this one is going to do import human from game, well, game classes. And there's like some more sophisticated like patterns that we would use. But I don't want to focus on that too much right now. But we'll get into this when we get into backend development, how we'd organize this. So that, and then in here we'd say like, this is where we would do the whole like, this whole thing. So like this would all be run in this one file. So it like imports the classes, and then we run them all in here. And this would be like the game. Like this is where like the game is actually happening. So and then the classes would be abstracted away into another folder, then we import them. So this is very, very similar to, you know, how things are running with like within your React applications. So, all right, cool. So anyway, so the main takeaway is just more like, how would you do this with, I guess like the big thing is just to like, you know, kind of understand object-oriented programming a little bit better, and then also to see or just to kind of like see how this relates a little bit to like React and how you have like these different classes you're importing, different components and using them in different ways. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. Lots of really good questions. So I feel like this was pretty productive. So, cool. All right. Well, I will talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.